Welcome, viewers, to episode 77 of the ForensicWeek.com show, brought to you by Forensic IQ Incorporated. I'm your host, Tom Moriello, CEO of Forensic IQ and professor at the University of Maryland Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice in College Park, Maryland. Tonight, it was the crime of the century in 1892. This show brings viewers back to the Victorian era in New England in Fall River, Massachusetts, to conduct a forensic examination of the accused, Lizzie Borden. We are broadcasting this show live from the very house where the most infamous murder case of the 19th century occurred at 92 2nd Street in Fall River, Massachusetts, now referred to as the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast Museum, with a new address of 230 2nd Street, Fall River. The Lizzie Borden B&B Museum is co-owned and operated by Leanne Wilbur. This is not the first time ForensicWeek.com has broadcast a show on the Lizzie Borden case or been in this house. Some of you viewers who've watched regularly may remember episode 17, Lizzie Borden, Nothing But the Truth. It was aired live on March 28, 2013. Special guest experts were Dr. Stefani Koorey, editor and publisher of The Hatchet, a journal of Lizzie Borden in Victorian Studies, Michael Martins, curator of the Fall River Historical Society, and Dennis Bennett, assistant curator, both co-authors of the book Parallel Lives. I have a copy of that, A Social History of Lizzie A. Borden and Her Fall River. Also, the Discovery Channel presented a documentary on the Borden murders in 2004, produced by Morningstar Entertainment. The name of that show is Lizzie Borden Had an Axe. It will be rebroadcast on Discovery's Destination America channel next Wednesday, June 23rd at 11 a.m. Guests this evening were on that show together with myself as a forensic investigator and Tom Lang, retired LAPD homicide investigator, who was the principal investigator in the O.J. Simpson double murder case that was the crime of the 20th century. This time we're going to be doing a psychological autopsy of Lizzie Borden. We're going to focus on her motives and opportunities and the motives of other people around her to continue to examine her true involvement in the double murders of her parents. Tonight we have a return guest to ForensicWeek.com, Dr. Stefani Koorey, editor and publisher of Pear Tree Press and the editor and publisher of literary Hatchet. We were supposed to have Dr. Stephen Kane, a psychologist and associate professor at the University of Guam. He was going to be coming to us live from Guam, and because of an unfortunate circumstance beyond his control and our control, he will not be with us. But we are going to be referring to two articles that he's written. Lizzie Borden, Anxiety Attachment and 40 Wax, a systemic exploration of incest and parricide. Parricide is the killing of one's parents. And the second paper, Anniversary Slaughter, an examination of symbiotic spree killing in the unsolved Lizzie Borden family murders. Let me introduce our ForensicWeek.com crew this evening. We have Laura Pachuki, producer of our show, a graduate now of the George Washington University's Forensic Sciences Department. You might find a young lady with her, Genevieve, her young daughter, who's with us, so that's that person who's with her. She's also working on the show. And we have Jamal Francis. Those of you who've been watching Jamal this past season, you may say, is that really Jamal? Yes, it is. He obviously got a haircut. He graduated from the University of Maryland this semester, and now he's looking for a job, so now he dresses, wears suits and ties, etc. And he is one of our co-producers, done a great job. So congratulations to our new graduates. And Laura, if you would, please tell our viewers how to ask questions, make comments, and keep watching.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone, and thank you for watching ForensicWeek.com. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future shows, please email us at forensicweek@gmail.com. If you're watching this show live and you have a question for our guests, you can use the comment box below and we'll bring that up on air. You can also tweet us at Forensic Week. If you like this episode, please click the subscribe button on YouTube. You can watch all archive shows 24/7 online at forensicweek.com. You can also find us on Facebook by searching the forensicweek.com show, like and share our page. Thanks, and back to you, Tom.
Folks, you are watching ForensicWeek.com, a talk show that features real forensic science by real forensic scientists, educators, law enforcement, and legal professionals who find, collect, and examine forensic evidence in the performance of their duties. Broadcast live on your desktop and mobile devices on Thursday evening, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on our YouTube channel, www.forensicweek.com. We are a proud member of the Hangout10.com live TV webcast network, which is a series of shows brought to you live using Google+, a social networking service. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I told you that we are actually broadcasting this show in the Borden House. And I have with me, next to me, Sue Vickery, who's one of the tour guides here at the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. Lizzie, thank you. Lizzie. Lizzie! Sue, thank you so much for being with us. Please tell us a little bit about this house and being a tour guide. Obviously, who comes to look in what does one see when you come into to the bed and breakfast?
Well, when you walk into this house, it's like stepping back in time. And we get a variety of people here. We get people who are into the historic part of it. They're trying to solve the things as we're walking through the house.
Are people still trying to solve this case?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As I'm talking, they're looking around. Oh, that's a good closet you could hide in. You know? And, of course, we get our paranormal people who are interested in the activity of the house.
Mm-hmm. And do you have, when is the bed and breakfast open for tours, and if somebody was interested in so people stay here overnight, right? It's a bed and breakfast.
Yes, if they make the night, they do. Yes.
How does one do that? I mean, how do you make reservations, etc.?
Well, you can get on our website and go under the reservations and do it that way, or you can call the house and do it over the phone. And we give daytime tours 7 days a week from 11 to 3 p.m. is our last tour that goes out, every hour on the hour.
Every hour on the hour?
Yes,
you have
sir.
that many people who are coming through here?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Are they locals from Massachusetts and Rhode Island, or where are they coming from?
Well, you get the local people, but we also get people from all over the world.
And now, Fall River is not, you can't get there from here. You gotta, if you're in Fall River, you intended to go there.
Absolutely.
So people are actually coming to Fall River specifically to come to this house.
Oh yes, we just had people from Canada last night here, specifically for this house. Yeah.
Now, how long is a tour of the house? Well, we say the house, but it's the grounds really, because you have the house and you have the barn in the back.
Yeah. Well, we only tour the house.
You tour the house, okay.
Our daytime tour is about an hour long, and at night, depending on the crowd and the questions being asked, it can go anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours.
And what happens during that hour and a half to 3 hours?
Well, at nighttime, we give you the historic as well as the paranormal. So I take you through events through each room in the house. I tell you a piece of the story. And then when I'm finished with the historic part in that room, I'll tell you of the paranormal happenings in that room.
All right. Not that I want to do a show on paranormal experiences, but what do you mean by that?
Just different things that occur in the house,
The noises and all those various things?
Voices, noises, footsteps, doors opening and closing, things like that.
All right. In fact, earlier today when we were setting up, there was a group of ghost, what do you call those? Ghost hunters were here earlier. Yeah, I forget where, from New York. They were from New York.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, sometimes a group itself will rent the house out for the night, just so they can spend the whole night investigating.
Now, right behind you, in fact, I'm going to change cameras so the viewers can see it. Behind us this is where the father, Andrew, was murdered. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Now, it's certainly not the same couch and wallpaper, etc., because the wallpaper was full of blood from the crime scene photographs. And so, what is original in the house?
All of the woodwork's original doorknobs. Well, actually, most of the woodwork is original doorknobs. The ornate heaters that you see in the rooms, those are original. Mr. Borden had those installed in the house.
Ah, okay. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, listen, please tell Leanne, the owner of the building, that we really, first of all, I'm sorry that she couldn't be with us this evening, but we really appreciate the opportunity to do the show here, and I want to thank you for being cooperative and helping us. And I know you have some people staying this evening,
Yes.
and we have a Thomas Gallagher, who's one of the people who just got here this afternoon, and he will be sleeping in the Lizzie Borden bedroom, from what he told me.
By himself.
Near the end of the show, we're going to bring him on and talk to him and find out, why he's here and what his interest is. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you talking with us. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Sue Vickery. She's one of the tour guides who works here. They have tour guides working day and evening. I'd like to introduce our famous guest, Dr. Stefani Koorey, who has been with us before. And
there's no sound coming out of here, is there supposed to?
There's no sound coming out of here. You can't hear me.
No.
Can you hear her? Everything's good. Everything's good, so don't worry about it.
Can I take them off?
No, I don't want you to take them off.
Oh, okay.
Just keep them on. And we'll find out why that's not working, but I'm not sure why. But if you're not hearing it, you're not. Okay, then keep them on, because I think you'll hear them. Okay.
Okay.
Technical, no matter how hard you work at IT. All right. When I asked you to come on the show, I said Dr. Stephen Kane was going to be on here, and he had a number of different theories about Lizzie.
Right.
And we've done past shows where we've talked about the physical evidence. Now, the reality is that this crime occurred 123 years ago. Am I right?
1892.
Okay. And everybody who was there is dead.
Hopefully.
So, hopefully, yeah. So, yeah, I know. Not sure in reference to the paranormal. But the reality is that, I've read a lot of books. There's a lot out there, and I know you have. And Dr. Kane is focused on Lizzie, the psychological aspects of motive. Why would she have done this if she did? Now, he approaches it feeling, hey, Lizzie Borden killed her stepmother and father.
Right.
Therefore, now let me find out what was her motive, and that's how he approaches it. And now, as a criminal investigator, that's not always a good approach, because you've already made up your mind, and what you do is you only find and examine information that focuses on that.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about why one would believe Lizzie Borden had a number of psychological problems that would have caused her to do this. What are the kinds of things that you've heard that you just don't agree with, or you have research that says they're not correct?
Well, there are certain things that are in parallel lives that come out that are brand new. So there is some new information about her personality and her state of mind as a child. There's a friend of hers named Luli who kept a diary, and she ran around with her, and they were schoolmates. And Luli describes Lizzie Borden in several episodes of the diary, and one of the things she says was that she was blue. So she might have had some kind of bout with sadness, or maybe she was morose or depressed at certain points in her life. There's also a mention that she had a head injury. Now, I don't know if she fell off a horse or if she fell down. But
that Lizzie Borden fell off a horse?
Yeah. Well, they rode horses. Her father had a barn with the horses in it. And she was a horse lover in her life. So there's things like that. But to take that sort of existence of a normal person in a period of history that we know nothing else about, and then sort of wrap it into this idea of incest with Andrew and her as a reason for her to snap.
Where did the ideas of incest occur?
I think they came out of Dr. Kane's theory.
Yeah, but he read, didn't he?
Well, his sources, to me, are suspect. His sources in both of his articles are Victoria Lincoln.
This is one of the sources, and one of the many books that are out there that have been written.
Yeah, and the other one is Spearing, who wrote a book about Lizzie Borden that's pretty much made up. It's a lot of fiction in the book. He used gossip and innuendo, and he created out of whole cloth entire incidents that never happened. He did it to sell his book, and it sold very well. It's a very interesting read, but it's not, it's discredited. And so is Victoria Lincoln, who says that while she was a resident and a native of Fall River, she didn't run in Lizzie Borden's crowd and didn't know her personally. And her theory was that Lizzie Borden had epilepsy and killed her parents in fits of an epileptic seizure. Now, I've never, ever heard of anybody doing that personally, and there's no evidence that Lizzie had epilepsy. So the two books that he used for the basis of his theory about psychological disturbances are from books that are discredited. So that's one of my issues with his theory. I think he's the first one to propose it. He proposed it in 1992 at the Centennial
That's
Conference.
Dr. Kane.
Dr. Kane, and presented a paper. And when I went back and read that, and then I read his current paper, I had a lot of issues because I felt that he was mixing Abby and Sarah up a little bit, and he had his dates kind of
Abby
messed up.
being
The stepmother, and Sarah being the real mother, the original, her birth mother. Lizzie Borden, to me, people who have to demonize the victims, who have to make them out to be evil, they do so in a way to make it justifiable for them to be killed. So if they like Lizzie Borden, but they think she did it and got away with it, then there must have been a reason why she did it that's perfectly reasonable. In other words, the people deserved it. And I don't think demonizing the victim is an appropriate way to approach the case. I'm not going to blame Andrew and Abby for their own deaths. I think that that's unfair of them because there's no evidence of any of this. And if there was evidence of this, it would be a completely different story.
And the point you're making, I believe, is that Andrew was a miser, that they could have lived in a nicer part of town, and that Lizzie wanted to live in a nicer part of town, and that bothered her and upset her. Those are the kinds of things you're talking about?
Partly, but see, he was a Yankee. He was a self-made man. He had nothing when he started, and then when he died, he was wealthy. So every penny he made, he earned himself. He was a Calvinist, so he was a sort of an austere kind of person, but he was generous. He moved his family from when he married Abby. He moved his family from Ferry Street, which is down the hill even further, closer to the mills and the pollution and the sound and the working class, to the business district, which is an upgrade to 2nd Street. And they bought this house, converted a 2-family home into a single-family home, and everybody had their own room. He added water. He had running water in the house. He had a flush toilet in it's a seat with a flush in the basement. He had running water in the kitchen and in running water in the barn. So he wasn't this guy that didn't give them creature comforts. He also he bought Abby the half of the 4th Street house from her stepmother and stepsister and gave that to her. So he gracious in that regard. And when Lizzie and Emma had a big beef about that, why did you do that for her? You got to do stuff for us. He gave them the Ferry Street house that he owned and let them collect rents on it and have an income. And then when they didn't want to do that anymore, he bought it back for them. He gave them a gift and then gave them cash back, $5,000, weeks before the murders happened.
But let me ask you, I have only because when I was involved in doing the show in 2004, I said, okay, what books are out there? I found as many books as I could. I started reading the same things over and over again. I read nothing anywhere that made him a nice guy. And why was that?
Because they like the stereotype. He's become a stereotype. He's not a stereotype. He was a flesh and blood person who existed, who had wants and dreams and cares and a life and a family, and his wife died, and then 2 years later he remarried. And he had a daughter that died as a young child. So he
Yeah,
had
a lot of people I don't know. I don't remember even that there was a
third child.
the second daughter. So the second
Yes.
child died
Yes.
before Lizzie was born.
Yes. Her name was
And
Alice
how did she
Esther.
die?
She died of dropsy.
Dropsy.
That's I guess fluid on the brain, which can be caused by a number of things, including meningitis. But she died at 2 years, almost 2 years old, 1 year and 10 months. Then let's get back to the generosity of Andrew, which I really want to harp on here. He gave his daughter Emma a year and a half of room and board at Wheaton College in Massachusetts.
Can I have his picture? Oh, she's done. Okay,
and that was expensive. And she lived there and went to college there. It's not a finishing school. It was college. She had a year and a half of college. Then she came back here. And Lizzie Borden was given a 19-week tour.
Stephanie, he's never smiling. The guy's never smiling.
You didn't smile in these pictures. You were just standing still.
That guy, Tom? That's Andrew. That's Andrew. That's a good picture. He's almost smiling.
Wait, look. He's smiling now.
Yeah.
No, and then he gave Lizzie Borden a grand tour. She went to Europe for 19 weeks. Now, I would like to go to Europe for 19 weeks. That would be fabulous. So he was not the tight-fisted guy that people make him out to be. Now, it's easy to make him out to be a bad guy because he ends up dying and he can't speak for himself. And it's easy to make him out to even be an evil guy, which is, I think, what Dr. Kane does in his article. He makes him out to be despicable and deserves to be killed in a despicable way.
Well, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say
no,
that.
but that's what you get out of it.
But that's information he's collected.
Yes.
So basically what you're saying is that the data he's collected comes from sources that you're not comfortable
I'm
with.
not comfortable with them at all.
Not comfortable with.
No.
Okay.
I'll use that word, yes.
Yes. Well, I'll say that because I just spent two weeks in Italy and I'm talking about history from 2,000 years ago, and I had tour guides talk to me like they were there, and then they did this, and there were, and I'm saying, okay, that's nice. They showed me they alleged that the bassinet, the place where Jesus was born,
they had a piece of it.
They had a piece of it. Now, okay, if I want to believe that, that's fine, but the bottom line is I wasn't there. And my concern, and I talked to Stephanie about this over dinner, in 100 years from now, we're going to be talking about the O.J. Simpson case. And everybody who's talking about it, who's going to be an expert, wasn't there. All right. We all know that O.J. Simpson killed his ex-wife and Ron Goldman. All right. Now, he was found not guilty, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Based on the way the evidence was presented, he should have been found not guilty. But that doesn't mean he didn't do it. And I'm confident based on the circumstances. But I would love to hear the story 100 years from now. So I wonder, what really did happen.
Well, it's 100 years later now for this case, and we're still talking about it.
We're talking about, it's funny. This is probably one of the only murder crime scenes that's 100+ years old,
and still in existence that you can come to and walk around in.
I asked Stephanie, why do we still care about Lizzie Borden in this double murder? And one of the reasons she said is because the house still stands.
The house is still here, and her home in Maplecroft is still there, and she's buried here, and she lived here. She never left this town. After her acquittal, she stayed. That's remarkable. She could have gone anywhere. She was wealthy. She stayed in Fall River.
Okay. If I was forced, if somebody forced me to say, all right, I want you to tell me what you really believe, based on what and if I had to give an answer, which you never do, I would say I think she did. Okay, I truly do. In reference to who was in the building at the time, that we know. All right, that we know. If I had to be forced to do it, I love Stephanie's answer. Her answer is, what do we know about it? Did she do it?
I don't
know.
I don't know, and I don't care.
But what's interesting is that you don't care, and that it's not about it's about her and who she was and the family.
And the history of the city and what Fall River is and how it approaches her and how it stays away from her still and the attitude about her. I find that interesting for the city itself.
But somebody decided
yes.
To
murder someone.
Murder
yes.
the husband and wife.
Yes.
And they didn't just murder him. If I want to kill you, I'll hit you over the head. Well, in fact, I can do that right now.
No, please don't.
Oh, yeah.
Don't kill me.
This is rubber. This is rubber. But if I want to kill you, after I hit you maybe the second time, I'm going to be pretty sure you're dead. But no, the mother was hit in the back of the head 18 plus times.
19 times.
19 times. Oh, see, she knows. And she wasn't even there, but she knows she got hit 19 times.
I read the autopsy.
She read the autopsy. Okay. 19 times.
Yeah.
All right. And the father 11 times. I got that right. 11 times. All right. Now, you're not just killing the person. You've got.
But, time out. This is the only murder with a hatchet that happened with an hour-and-a-half break in between. Well, ever. Usually when someone kills like that, they kill everybody at once.
Yeah,
it's
but
a
they
spree.
weren't. But he wasn't in the house at the time.
You can't work up that kind of passion and kill someone and then kind of wait around and iron some things and then walk around and eat a pear and then come back and do it again.
I agree.
People don't do that.
Jamal says he agrees.
They don't do that.
Did you hear him say that?
No, I didn't. But there could have been two murderers. Right? Somebody who did one and somebody did the other. Or it could have been someone who was dispassionate. And I think that if you're saying that Lizzie did it, that there's a passionate reason why she would have done it. People kill for money all the time. You don't need to create a psychological profile of an incest victim in order to explain a murder. If she did it,
did she get more?
She could do it for money. Why not for money?
The fact that the stepmother died, did she get more money?
Well, if it was a third, the laws of Massachusetts were that Abby would have gotten a third and the two daughters would have gotten a third. But because she died first, the money went to the daughters. But they gave Abby's family all of Abby's money and property and her possessions.
Okay, so we got this guy Andrew, who's everybody loves. He's a great guy.
No, not everybody loves him. He's a business guy.
Who do you believe? Now, again, based on your research, because you've done it. If there's anybody here that could be sitting next to me, it's you, okay? Who could have possibly hated those people so badly?
Why do they have to be hated?
They didn't steal anything.
Why does there have to be hate?
Wait a minute. There was no robbery.
Doesn't have to be hate.
Huh?
People kill without hating people, don't they?
They don't go into somebody's house to do that. They do something out in the street.
Hey, if I hired you to kill my parents, you don't hate them. You're getting paid to do it.
So it's.
You think someone hired?
It was a murder for hire.
Couldn't have been a hit.
By okay. If it was a hit, by whom?
I don't know.
Why?
Okay. Well.
And why? There's a good question. I have no idea. But I'm saying we don't know. And she was acquitted. So you can say that O.J. was guilty. We all think O.J. was guilty, but he was acquitted. You can say Lizzie Borden was guilty, but she was acquitted. So isn't that an indictment of the judicial system and the police investigation system instead of?
Well, I know. It's an indictment on the justice system because the justice system in this country is far from perfect, and not that I'm criticizing it because I don't know if there's anything better. But the bottom line is we know for a fact that our justice system is making mistakes constantly. In fact, prior to 1984, we really believed our justice system was pretty good. Yeah. But then when DNA was created, it allowed, that was valuable forensic evidence that allowed us to know that, hey, we've made mistakes. Over 1,300 people since 1984 have been that were found guilty and spent years in prison have been exonerated and have been let out because they found they made a mistake.
Lizzie Borden's penalty, if she was convicted, would have been hanging. Hanging a woman in Massachusetts in that period of time would have been a big deal. The men on the jury who deliberated for 10 or 15 minutes had decided that she was not guilty, and they returned that verdict.
Why do you think they And when you
There
read
wasn't
the
enough
transcript-
evidence to convict her. If you're going to put someone into the gallows, you better damn well prove it.
Mhm.
And I don't think they felt that the case was proven by the state. They didn't have enough evidence. There was no blood. They never found a murder weapon. She had an alibi, whether you believed it or not. Emma wasn't there. Bridget didn't do it. They just didn't know who did it.
Okay. What about the burning of the dress? Now, first of all,
Very foolish thing to do when
okay.
they're
So,
looking
would
for...
you agree that? Would you agree that? Well, in the newest movie that was
Yes.
out,
Yeah.
they made it clear. Now, I want to know what you think. That she was told that they wanted that dress.
Right. That was
All right.
fictional.
So she's
fun.
told to bring in a dress, and then she goes back and she burns it.
In
Why would
a
she
barrel in the
And
in
why
the
would she do that?
outdoors.
And why would she do that?
Well, in the reality of the story, not in the television TV movie, she burned a dress that she said was paint stained. And indeed, she had a brand new dress that got paint on it. There are witnesses when the house was repainted recently before the murders. So she had picked the color. They let her pick the color. So she picked the color of the house, which was drab. It got on the hem of her skirt, and it ruined her brand new dress. So she put it up in the closet, so she said, and so witnesses said. So she burned the dress foolishly a few days after the crime happened, and was witnessed by her friend and her sister, her friend Alice Russell. And Alice Russell's like, "What did you do?" And she said, "You should have told me not to do that." You know, she's on morphine too. I mean,
So her argument was that she burned the dress because it had paint on it?
yes.
Yeah. So she decides to do that
Yes.
like the next day after.
No, it's like 2 or 3 days later.
2 or 3 days
That's not
after.
extension. That's a little sketch.
It is a little sketchy, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that if the day of the murders, she was given a bromocaffeine, and then Dr. Bowen started giving her morphine. She was on morphine from the day of the murders through the trial. So she was on morphine for a year.
Wow.
Now, I understand that morphine makes you kind of fuzzy in the head. So if she is being asked specific questions, she might get them muddled and confused. If she's 3 days later and she's not used to taking morphine and she burns a dress, like she's like out of it. I mean, there's other explanations, although not great explanations, but there are other explanations as to what could have been in her head that day when she did that. Now, I will say that if it wasn't for Alice Russell going to the grand jury and telling them that she witnessed this, there would not be a trial. It was Alice Russell, her friend's testimony at the grand jury that caused them to indict her for the murder. Because before that, they didn't have any indictment. And Alice Russell was bothered by that, went to the grand jury after they had already met. They reconvened. She presented her testimony to the grand jury, and they indicted Lizzie with that testimony. So it was a big deal. And Alice Russell, of course, became what was known as her turncoat friend, and was never friends with Emma and Lizzie.
I'm sure. I tell you what, I see that one of our occupants of the room this evening is here, Tom Gallagher. When you come back,
Yes.
what I would like to talk about is about your interest. You know, what your background was and how did you decide to study this and actually come to live in Fall River, because you're not from Fall River,
I
Massachusetts.
am not from Fall River. No.
And when you and I first met, you were in Florida.
I live in Atlanta.
And you decided to move here. So I want to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to take the headset off of you, the one that's not working anyways, and I'm going to ask Tom. Tom, come on in. This is Tom Gallagher from Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Have a seat, my friend. Thank you so much for being on the show. What brought you to come to Fall River, Massachusetts, and spend an evening in the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast?
Well, I'm interested in ghosts to see if I could find any evidence of the ghost in this house, Lizzie Borden.
Are you interested in the ghosts in general more, or Lizzie Borden, or what might be in the Lizzie Borden house specifically?
Well, mostly ghosts, but There's historical stuff too, but mostly ghosts, his father and the mother.
Have you ever been here before?
No, I haven't.
Have you gone to other houses that have been haunted or believed to be haunted?
Well, I just came from Salem, Massachusetts, believe it or not.
Ah, Salem witch houses,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, I just been there the beginning of this week.
Did anybody touch you while you were there?
No,
No.
I think I might have got a picture of one.
Okay, all right. So you're staying in the Lizzie Borden room, is that
Yes,
correct?
Yeah.
All right. So what do you plan on doing this evening? You're gonna sleep? You're gonna stay up all night?
I'm gonna try and sleep. I took some pictures after I got here to see if anything come out on camera, but nothing came out yet.
Okay. So you're taking pictures to see if you'll see something later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope so.
When did you first learn about the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast?
After I seen in a couple movies on television, then I learned about it that they let people stay here overnight. So I thought to myself I had to be here.
You had to be here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and you have a good time this evening.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
All right, and I appreciate it. And I think there's 4 other folks who are going to be eventually staying over.
Yeah.
Is that right? Now, are you friends? Do you know each other or not?
I met 2 other people this afternoon.
Okay.
After I got here, I don't know where they went.
Okay.
And the other 2 people didn't come until like later on.
All right. So you get a complete tour of the house.
Yeah.
All right, and you have breakfast in the morning because it's a
Yeah.
bed and breakfast. So I guess
Yeah.
yes you do. Now they don't feed you what the Bordens ate in 1892. I hope.
Yeah, that's what they said. It's the last breakfast. That's what you get for breakfast tomorrow morning.
And what is that?
I think it's Johnny cakes and eggs, sausage. I think it is.
All right. How about it wasn't they had some kind of a fish breakfast thing? Yeah, well, I'll find that out from Stephanie. I'm sure she'll know exactly, and she'll have the recipes. But you enjoy yourself, and I thank you very much for being on the show.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. All right, that was Thomas Gallagher from Hazleton, Pennsylvania. As he said, his focus is less on the murders and more about whether there are.
I came here in 1997, the year after it opened. I had
Now,
to come.
Opened. I mean,
as a bed and breakfast.
had it been okay? So, finish that story and then tell us, when it opened and closed.
Well, it opened in 1996, and it made the news that it was opened as a bed and breakfast. Could have been a private home, and you could stay in the house. And I came all the way up here from Florida with my boyfriend, and we stayed in the house. And I didn't sleep a wink because I didn't know. I was scared. I was literally scared being in the house because I'd never been in a crime scene before. Plus, I had read so much about the case, and actually being here, and being in the room where the murder had happened, and being in this room where the murder happened, for the first time, it was a very powerful experience. And like I said, I didn't know what would happen. Nothing happened, but it was a trip. And so I just had a very good time, and I thought it was an amazing experience because you finally get to be inside. Everything that you read about the case is baloney compared to being here in person and feeling it for yourself. I feel very light here. It's very comfortable. It's well maintained. I would love to live in this house. It would be very comfortable for me. It doesn't frighten me in any way anymore. And I've stayed here by myself in the house, and I've stayed here many times and with friends and other people, and I just think it's an amazing place, and I'm glad it's here.
Well, and I appreciate that. What brought you to the fascination, though? I mean, there's a lot of things out there.
My father's fault. Your
father's fault.
Yeah, it was my dad's fault. He
Tell
was
us.
interested in reading true crime, and he read a book by Sullivan called Goodbye, Lizzie Borden, and he asked us at the dinner table one night, what do you guys think? And we're all like, huh? Who's Lizzie Borden? And he said, oh my gosh. So he made us read the book. So we all read the book so then we could come back and discuss it from an even playing field. So then we would have these wild ideas and theories. And so we got into the case because my father got us into the case. And then when I lived in Orlando, Ted Bundy was on trial there. He was convicted in Orlando when I was there. So true crime became sort of a part of what we would talk about as a family. It's an odd thing, but it's all historical and interesting, and we would read everything we could get our hands on. And then years and years later, we got involved in it again with my sister and I. And after that, I just started reading and reading and reading. And once we got access to the trial transcripts and the preliminary and worked on producing a digital copy of that with our friend, the late Harry Widows, and my sister, Kat Koorey, and then giving most of that away to the world, it was the same thing my dad did. We wanted everybody to have a level playing field to be able to discuss the case. And if we had the trial, we wanted other people to be able to read it for free, and they still can. They can go to my website, lizzieandrewborden.com, and download the trial and read it yourself and come up with your own ideas. I prefer that people read primary sources instead of fictional accounts by people who think they know what they're talking about.
So when you say primary, what are the primary sources that you believe?
Well, the witness statements, they're online. Those were the statements taken by the witnesses by the police right at the time of the murders and for a couple of days after. So the police witness statements are available where they interviewed everybody. You've got the inquest testimony, volume 2. The first inquest testimony is missing, but the second volume has everybody but Bridget and Lizzie. You have the preliminary hearing, which is a mini trial, actually, and then you have the trial itself, which is 1,900 pages. So you can read everybody's testimony, and you could see everybody say where they were and what they were doing and what they knew. Lizzie, of course, Lizzie didn't testify at the preliminary or the trial. She only testified at the inquest. But it was inadmissible because she was not represented by counsel during the inquest, even though there was a warrant for her arrest.
Well, wasn't she also told, or was this myth, told by the mayor or somebody
yes,
in 1904?
Yes, that she was suspected.
That you suspected, which at that point she should have been advised that she did not have to testify.
Right, she wasn't. Yeah.
And that's why, you know.
She wasn't represented by counsel at the inquest, and so it was inadmissible. So that's good for her, lucky for her, because she was very scattered in her answers and couldn't remember where she was at particular times and gave varying answers. But again, she was drugged up, so.
Yeah. Well, that's true, and it's my experience that witness statements are just as good as fiction.
Oh yeah,
Many
that's
times.
interesting.
I mean a lot. When you look at the 1,300 people that have been exonerated.
Yes,
in fact, if you
that's
look
true.
at, let me tell you,
Eyewitness
the first
testimony.
279 people who were exonerated by the
Innocence Project.
Innocence Project,
Mm-hmm.
over 70% of the victims in court turned around and said, "That's the man who raped me,"
Mm-hmm.
and they were wrong.
Right.
They believed they were right. Mm-hmm. They truly believed they were right, but they were wrong.
Tom, I think that's just a matter of misidentification. Because, I mean, once you set in your mind that, you know, this individual is the person that was involved with the crime and you see that face and you're able to put a face to that, in your mind that's automatically correct, you know, and it's almost impossible to shift that thought and believe that someone else might have done it.
But
even if it was someone else.
To what you're saying, though, isn't it also true that white people and black people misidentify each other because they're not used to facial characteristics of the other race? So a white person may identify a black person, but misidentify a black person because they're not aware of the detail of black features
Mm-hmm.
of a particular person, and so they confuse it.
Well, you know, if I show you a photo lineup of 6 people,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell you, hey, I want you to look at the 6 people and tell me which one raped you.
I'd be really bad at that stuff.
All right, but it would be like a multiple choice test.
Yeah.
Where you know
It's nervous.
the right answer is there.
Right.
Okay, and it's just a matter of which one you're going to pick.
Sure.
But if I said, I want you to look at these 6 people and tell me if you've ever seen them before.
Right.
Not suggesting that they committed the crime. That's a different way. Okay.
That is a different
And
way.
that's what investigators have learned to use.
Mm-hmm.
That in fact, when you suggest that they're there, that will give them the person say, okay, I want to help the police. I want to catch this person. I'm assuming that he's there, so let me see which one looks the closest.
But also, what you said at the very beginning, starting with deciding that somebody's guilty and working back, it's very easy to find the evidence. But when you start at the beginning of the crime and try to find who did it from that direction, without a preconceived idea of who did it, I think is the way the police didn't work in this case.
Okay, but you did say that your research showed that the police did look at other suspects.
They did look at other suspects, but the initial reaction for the police that interviewed her was that she was very guilty, and she acted very guilty because she didn't cry her eyes out and things like that. She behaved differently than they expected her to. Now, this is a bunch of men walking into... Yeah, so they judged her right away.
We actually have a YouTube question, guys. Kim
Okay, YouTube question.
On YouTube, she says, "Is it possible that Lizzie was bipolar?"
Is it possible? Did you hear that?
Yes, I have no idea.
If you heard that, then you're hearing it in your...
I did hear it then.
Yes.
Okay. Well, maybe it goes off and on.
Okay.
Is it possible? I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's my thing with this case, is that it's possible, but where's the evidence? I want evidence, and if I don't have the evidence, well, not even concrete, but just even if it's anecdotal, but it's by someone who knew her that didn't have an agenda. The problem with the people that write the books that turn out to be really fictional, even though they're fiction, and the movies, is that they have an agenda. They either want to entertain you, or they want to spread rumor, or they want to let you, she's guilty, I'm going to prove it. I can prove she's guilty if I go back and just pull out stuff from Lincoln. I can prove that too.
Sure.
What were you going to say, Jamal?
I was going to say, even listening to, a primary source, for example, someone that, went to trial and had an opinion about her, how do you know that that person didn't have a motive? That's what's difficult to tell. So, I don't know, I think it's, all in all, it's just a very difficult situation, obviously, because we weren't there, and it was 100-something plus years ago. So. And
there was no fingerprinting done at that time.
Right.
The blood spatter analysis was not complete or wasn't thorough. The autopsies were done several days later, and the complete ones. They couldn't type blood. It was no DNA, of course. So what we've got here is a mystery. And it's a mystery that endures, and that's what makes Lizzie Borden so fascinating. Did she or didn't she is the age-old question, and we'll never know. I don't think.
I asked you this question earlier. I'll ask it to you on the show. If for some strange, unusual reason we found out that Lizzie Borden, in fact, killed her stepmother and father, do you think this whole mystique would go away?
No, because the house is still here, and people will come here. If it was proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that she did it, they'd come here still because the murder house is still here. Mm-hmm. They'd come here just to feel this house where those two people were slaughtered.
That's great.
That's what I think, anyway.
I don't know if Dr. Steve has the capability to even be listening to our show. He's 14 hours ahead in Guam.
I wish
but actually, he's actually in Manila. But if you are listening, Dr. Kane, we certainly want to have you back on the show. We're sorry that you couldn't make it this evening, but I still think that we do need to talk more about the things that you found. Talk about your sources, and then decide for ourselves how much we want to listen to, because that's what I think happens.
Well, my friend on the Lizzie Borden Society forum, Li Song Yang, who's Chinese but lives in Italy, he said to me online, even if she was a victim of incest, even if, that doesn't mean that she killed her parents. So there's always that leap that goes from one thing to the next to the next. And I think the leaps between what we know and what we don't know and what could have happened and what happened are so wide that we'll never find out how to fill it in.
One last question. Was she a happy person? I mean, she lived alone, was never married. Not that doesn't mean, I know you're not married and you're a happy person.
I'm a happy person and I'm not married.
But, I mean, was she a happy person? I mean, she didn't work. Not to say that's wrong, all right, but
you're bringing it up.
Well, okay. I mean,
I would like a life like that. I would like a life where I didn't have to go to work and I had enough money to travel. She traveled the world. She traveled to Washington, D.C. almost every August because the newspapers here in town would bring up the murder again every August 4th. So she would leave town just for that brief period of time. She had intimate personal relationships with her staff at Maplecroft.
What kind of intimate relationships?
Friendships, deep friendships.
Okay, when I hear intimate, I think,
no, intimate, like
because
like shared your life with another person,
What was the relationship with her and that actress? What was her name?
Nance
or singer
O'Neill.
Or whatever.
I think Nance O'Neill was an opportunist who lighted onto Lizzie Borden and got some money out of her to help fund the next production. They were just friends. There was theater in Fall River. Theater wasn't a bad thing back then. It wasn't a crime to have a party in your house.
The newest movie that just came. It's not Lizzie Borden had an axe because that's our show.
Lizzie Borden took an axe.
Was
the movie, and then the series of 8 episodes.
The series is foolishness, but
it's
the movie.
Hilarious.
I liked the movie.
I like the ending of the movie a lot.
The ending. For those of you who didn't see it, at the very end. Lizzie Borden has moved into Maplecroft, which is a part of the town that she was glad to be in. Okay.
It's another further up the hill from
here. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And by the way, guess who lives next door to the house? This young lady here.
Yes, I live in a house that Lizzie owned.
All right. Anyways, she at the end, the sister and her, obviously, What was the issue that she walks out the door?
Well, in the Elizabeth Montgomery movie, the very ending is she comes back after the trial and her sister Emma says, "Lizzie, I'm only going to ask you once. Did you kill Papa?" And Lizzie turns and all you hear is Lizzie Borden took an axe, and the movie ends. She never answers the question.
Can you sing that again?
Lizzie Borden.
Okay, that was good. Okay.
Then in this movie, you get the sense that it's going to happen again. But she actually puts her face right up to Emma's ear and whispers in her ear that she did do it and how she did it and why she did it. And Emma is just flabbergasted, and it's creepy, seriously creepy. And then it ends.
Then Emma, she walks out the door with her bags.
Yeah.
To show that she left.
It was amazing. It was a very powerful ending.
Yeah. And when she left, she never came back to see her sister.
But that was in 1905. Yeah. No, she didn't not right away.
She moved down the street.
Down the street.
Then to New Hampshire.
No, then to Providence. Two different places, and then to New Hampshire.
Depends on what book you read.
No. This is true.
Okay, but yeah, I think.
I think Emma is the most unknown quantity in the entire story.
Yeah.
Emma was the one that disliked Abby. Emma was the one that never called her mother. Lizzie called her mother up until 1887.
And then stopped.
Because of that land transfer and the building and the Abbey stuff.
But
Emma was 12.
Because she wanted more money.
Emma was 12 when her mother died. Emma was 14 when her father remarried. Emma was like a maturing adult at that period of time. So she was very protective of Lizzie. So Emma was the one who wasn't even home at the time. She had this perfect alibi. Emma disappears. There's no photographs of her except the one. I mean, there are two. Emma is an enigma to me more than Lizzie right now. I'm curious as to her life and it turns out she traveled. And it turns out she had friends. And it turned out she had a life beyond this case. But these were just ordinary people that had an extraordinary thing happen in their existence, whether they did it, were a part of it, or had it done to them. We don't know. We don't know how they celebrated birthdays or Christmas or, whether they sang songs or whether they played the piano. We don't know these things.
We don't. And that's why, ForensicWeek.com is not meant to be controversial, and we're not meaning to be controversial today, this evening. That's why, I truly want to have Dr. Kane on. I want to have you on again.
Sure.
And to talk about, as a psychologist, looking at that, and that's what we were going to do this evening. But I really like what we did this evening, and I think it'll be good to have Dr. Kane on and talk about his feelings in the behaviors, and then if he hears, okay, those behaviors may not be correct for these reasons, he might change that. Whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But we will learn about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Dr. Stefani Koorey for being with us. My pleasure. She's been a good friend since 2004
yes,
when we were together on that documentary. Sue Vickery, tour guide. Thank you, Sue, for being on here. Thomas Gallagher, who is an occupant of the building this evening from Pennsylvania, for being with us. And also I want to thank Leanne Wilbur, the manager extraordinaire of the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast Museum, for letting us broadcast right here from this truly historic venue. Ladies and gentlemen, ForensicWeek.com is being brought to you through the cooperation of the Hangout10.com webcasts network. And see the schedule of other shows on Hangout10.com, available for you to learn and be entertained as you were this evening. Upcoming shows, we have 3 shows that are going to be done in August. We usually take the summer off to prepare for the next season, but we're going to be at the International Association of Identification's 100th anniversary celebration and education conference in Sacramento, August 2nd to the 8th this summer. We're going to do 3 live shows sponsored by Bevel Gardner and Associates, and we thank Bevel Gardner and Associates for sponsoring us for these 3 shows. Monday on August 3rd, right after the grand opening of the exhibition, we're going to highlight some of the vendors and some of the new equipment and resources they have for forensic scientists and investigators. On Tuesday, August 4th, we're going to do a show on the IAI Professional Certification Program. What are the professional security programs? Why should an investigator or a forensic scientist want to be certified under the IAI? What do the courts, how do the courts deal with someone who has been certified? Bob Garrett is the chairman of the Professional Program Quality Assurance Governing Board, and he'll be on with us. And then Wednesday, August 4th, we are going to do a show on the history in the museum that IAI has put together for their 100th anniversary.
That's the anniversary of the murders, August 4th.
Oh my God, that's right,
that's
August
right.
4th.
That's
so
right.
The 3rd show on Wednesday, August 4th, will be the anniversary.
You have to have a pair.
I'm going to have to. We're going to call you. I'll have Laura Jamal call you up and get so you can say a few words about that.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching this show, and we will see you next time on ForensicWeek.com. Welcome to the ForensicWeek.com show. I'm your host, Tom Moriello. This show invites experts from around the world that discuss, educate, and mentor those viewers who are interested in topics from the crime scene to the crime lab and everywhere in between. The show is broadcast live on Thursday evening, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, then archived right here on our YouTube channel. We have listed each episode in convenient categories to make it easier for you to find a topic of interest. So if you're a student trying